Hi and welcome back to Core 4 Adventures. We just got back from an amazing European vacation where we took a river cruise with AMAwaterways on the Danube. And we had so much fun. The entire time was filled with castles, culture, and just so much to see and do. Today we're going to tell you all about that trip, including our cruise, in case it's something that you would like to do as well.
But first, if you feel like you get anything out of this video, please give us a big thumbs up because it really helps our channel. And consider subscribing and turning that notification bell on so you don't miss any of our content.
All right, let's start with the very first day. We did a couple days pre-cruise on our own. Now, AMAwaterways does do land packages that they can pair up with your river cruise, but we opted to do it by ourselves because we like to have a little bit of that freedom. And so we flew straight from California into Munich, and we got there, about mid-afternoon. It was a long haul flight.
So we took a little bit of a nap to refresh ourselves, not too long, got ourselves ready and rallied and went over to the Munich Residence. Now the Munich Residence closes at 5 p.m. and we got there about 3:30. It was really important to us to go to the Treasury. So that's what we did first.
Yeah, we love looking at the crown jewels in the European cities that we've been going to, and so that was number one on our list. When we went to go get our tickets, they said that we could choose one of the options in the residence to do because we got there in the mid-afternoon, and so we said, hey, we'd like to see the crown jewels in the Treasury, and that's exactly what we did. And they were absolutely spectacular. I could not believe my eyes.
You know, we've seen several sets of crown jewels in the last year, and I think those are absolutely my favorite. They were phenomenal.
Yeah.
There were so many amazing jewels, but we still really wanted to try to hit the residence too. So we didn't take too long. We spent, about 30 minutes in there?
Yeah, we went through it pretty quick. We're pretty good about that. You've seen us do the Louvre in 90 minutes, and so we did the Treasury in the Munich Residence in about 30.
So it was still early enough that we could purchase a second ticket, so we went back in and purchased the ticket for the Munich Residence, much to the chagrin of the people who were selling us the tickets.
Yeah, they kept saying that we didn't have enough time, and we're like, let us show you. I think we've got enough time. And I'm actually really glad that it worked out that way, because there were times when we were the only people in that area. We had the place all to ourselves, and it was stunningly beautiful. The architecture, the art, just fantastic. And the things that we really wanted to see in the Munich Residence were things like the little miniature cabinet that had miniature reproductions of famous artworks all throughout the rooms. I really definitely wanted to see that.
I really wanted to see that. I wanted to see the hall that has all of the pictures of the monarchs from the years of the Habsburg family, and that was really cool. Although one thing that we got to see in there was the scars left from World War II. You know, being in America, we don't always think so much about how much it affected everyday life for people there. And the Nazis took over the Munich Residence, and when they knew that the war was coming to an end, they literally took knives and cut all of the pictures out of the frames so that they could take the artwork with them, and you can still see the scars today.
Yeah, all of our tour guides throughout those first few days kept talking about the movie from George Clooney called The Monuments Men, and this is actually a true story of how a group of American soldiers went to find these famous, valuable works of art, This is exactly what we were seeing with our own eyes. When we got back from Europe, we watched that movie. It was pretty good. So after the residence, we made it through pretty quickly before it closed, and then we headed straight to Marienplatz.
We went straight to the Marienplatz because we really, really wanted to see the Glockenspiel go off while we were in Munich. Now, the Glockenspiel only goes off a few times a day at 11 a.m., 12 p.m., and most times at 5 p.m., so we beat feet there and made it in time for the 5 o'clock show.
Yeah, we were right down front. We got a great spot to see the Glockenspiel. Now, what the Glockenspiel is, it's in this big, tall tower, and it is this motorized, figures that go around, and it plays music at certain times of the day, and it tells a story. And the story that we got to see was of a Bavarian wedding, and there were some horses, and they were doing the jousting, and of course, the Bavarian knight won because he always wins. Well, we were were doing that, Pepper grabbed a table at a little cafe nearby and had his first beer of the trip.
But we had to see that Glockenspiel. The Glockenspiel is really like a giant cuckoo clock. You can kind of think of it like that. Very ornate, very beautiful. It was attached to the Rathaus, or the town hall for Munich, and it was absolutely spectacular.
So after the Glockenspiel went off, we went and joined Pepper for a little bit, and we had a lovely evening, early evening, just having some wine, some beer, some appetizers, and enjoying the beautiful weather in Munich. Then we decided to walk on over to the Hofbrauhaus. Now, this is the famous beer garden in Munich.
But before we went to the Hofbrauhaus, we stopped into the Lego store.
Yeah, this is my new favorite thing to do when we are traveling. If you're in a big city and there's a Lego store, definitely go inside, because they're going to have displays that are about the culture and the history of that city. I really regret not going into the Lego store when we were in London, because that would have been pretty cool. Our next trip, we're going to New York City, and you better believe the Lego store is on our list. So after the Lego store, we headed over to the Hofbrauhaus, and this is one of the original beer gardens in Munich. And it was so authentic. We went in and there's all these long tables where you just find yourself a spot, and we got so lucky because we sat at a table with locals, and they were a hoot. One of them even had his own stein that he keeps in a locker there at the Hofbrauhaus. So it's there every time he stops by. He just says, hey, bring me my stein and fill it up with beer.
And that table was so advantageous because it was right next to the Bavarian Oompa band, and we got to sit and listen to the music, talk to the locals, and have authentic Bavarian cuisine. Carol and I, of course, had to have schnitzel, which will be a theme for this tour.
That was our first schnitzel of the trip, for sure. It was delicious, and we had beer. Now, we're not big beer drinkers, so we had something called a Radler, which is half beer, half lemonade. Pepper drank all the beer, but we had a great time, listened to the music, and really enjoyed ourselves.
And of course, we always get a souvenir wherever we go on our travels, and for us, our souvenirs are usually a Christmas tree ornament and a magnet.
Yeah.
So for Munich, our magnet is the Glockenspiel. How cute is that? And it actually plays the music and spins around. We just don't have the batteries in it for you right now.
Yeah, we got this at the Munich Residence, but they had them in other stores throughout the city. But this was just adorable, and it totally reminds us of being in Munich. And then for our Christmas tree ornament, we thought a little bit outside the box. And when we were at the Hofbrauhaus, they had these. These are little beer steins. I think they're for shots, but we're going to put them on our Christmas tree because this reminds us of our evening spent at the Hofbrauhaus.
The local next to us said that they're for schnapps.
Schnapps, yeah.
For
so
schnapps.
Shots of schnapps.
Shots of schnapps, but we are going to hang it from our Christmas tree. So day 2 was the day I was looking the most forward to. We decided that we really wanted to go see Neuschwanstein because that was something that Randy always wanted to see, and this trip was in honor of his 50th birthday. So we got up early, we took a trip through Viader.
Yes, Viader is one of the things that we have figured out is our go-to when we are booking excursions on our trips. They're so easy and very reliable. This was the VIP tour, so we splurged a little bit, but I am so glad that we did. It was a bus tour. You could also do a train tour through Viader, but the bus was posh, had food, a red carpet when we started off, and our guide was wonderful. She was Canadian, grew up speaking German in her household, so she's from a German family, but she also learned English in school, and she was just delightful.
So our first stop was Linderhof Palace. We were there for about an hour. Linderhof Palace originally had been, when King Ludwig was a child, his father's hunting cabin, and he tore that down and built a small palace there. It was so ornate and beautiful. One of my favorite things to see was the dining room, Carol.
Yeah.
Wasn't that really cool?
That was so special because he had a dining room table that was built in the room below it, and it would raise and lower by the servants when he was ready to have his dinner. So it would come up on like an elevated platform. He'd eat his dinner, and then it would lower into the floor, and they'd clear all of the dishes away. One of the things about Linderhof Palace was we weren't allowed to film inside of it, but we got a little creative, and we got some postcards so that we could show you some of the interiors of that residence. It was ornate. It was beautiful. There was a lot to see.
After we finished at Linderhof Palace, we did a little bit of souvenir shopping because that's us. And we stopped in this little souvenir shop and found this cloister liqueur. Our guide had been talking about this on our way there. And there are 3 different flavors, although she says the purple one's the only one worth having. It's made with alpine herbs, and they say it's really delicious if you put it in the fridge and get it cold and put it over ice cream. Now, obviously, we haven't used it yet, so we'll have to let you know.
And this is actually made in that region by the monks at the abbey that we drove by. So we had to pick some up. While we were there, I also found this adorable Christmas tree ornament. It's a little bell that they put on the cows in the area. They said that they have very happy cows there. I'm not sure if they're as happy as the cows in California, but they look like they had a pretty good life.
Once we left Linderhof Palace, we drove a little more into the Alps and ended up at this little town, Oberammergau. Now, Oberammergau is famous because every 10 years they do a passion play there, and the entire town gets involved. You can only be in the passion play if you live in that town, but that wasn't the coolest part to me. The coolest part were the murals on all of the buildings called Luftelmalerei.
Yeah, it was just these gorgeous, like fairy tales, illustrated on the sides of the building. And she said that only the rich people could have these. They could only afford to have these put on the sides of their homes. And so it was a way to show off how much money you had, how wealthy or how well off you were. But they were just so picturesque and quaint and charming, and it really made it worth driving through there. Now, we went through at the end of March, and so our tour did not have enough time to stop. If you go on this same tour in the summer months, you get a chance to get out in Oberammergau and walk around, look at some of the shops, maybe get something to eat. But because our palaces that we were going to see, Neuschwanstein, closed early in the so-called winter months, we had to get going. So we did get to drive through it, but we didn't get to stop.
But where we did get to stop was the town of Schwangau. Schwangau is just south of Neuschwanstein within walking distance, and that is where they parked our bus for our tour of Neuschwanstein.
We did get to walk around in Schwangau. In fact, that's where we had lunch that day. We stopped at a little restaurant. Laura had like an authentic bread dumpling with some mushroom sauce. I had beef stroganoff that was delicious. And Pepper had our second schnitzel of the trip, and he thought it was good as well. You can't go wrong with schnitzel.
Hers definitely won that lunch. Now, Schwangau is the home of the castle Hohenschwangau, but we didn't have enough time to go to 3 different castles in one day, so we didn't get to do that. We did, however, make our way up towards Castle Neuschwanstein with a stop first at the Marienbrück, or Mary's Bridge.
And so that day we got on a shuttle bus to get up to the bridge. Now, they did say that there is a horse-drawn wagon that you can ride up there. Unfortunately, the day that we visited, that wasn't running because there was some construction going on. But we did get to ride up in the shuttle bus. Once we got up to the bridge, that is where you can get the most spectacular views of Neuschwanstein. I do have to tell you, though, the bridge is not for the faint of heart.
It's not. It seemed perfectly safe while we were there, but it did make people feel very uncomfortable. Pepper couldn't stay on the bridge for very long at all. One tip that Carol and I have is we did stay on the bridge for a while, and we went further past the halfway mark because most people weren't. And not only did it feel more secure and safe, but we got our best pictures of the trip on that spot.
Yeah, it was less crowded, so you don't have to have people jockeying around, pushing against you while you're trying to take your pictures. And the view was just as stunning. And I'm telling you, that was a stunning view. Neuschwanstein Castle is the castle that was the model for the Sleeping Beauty's castle at Disneyland Paris. And it was just the spires, the turrets. It is exactly what you think a fairy tale castle would look like.
And we did visit that castle at Disneyland Paris for her birthday in December. So we'll link that video in the description box below.
So once we were done on the bridge, we walked over to the castle, and here's a tip. you can get into the courtyard about 45 minutes before your timed ticket. And I highly recommend that you do, because there's other things to see inside that courtyard. You can walk up to like a balcony area and get a different view of everything. But they only give you like a 5-minute window when your ticket time goes. That's what time you need to go through the turnstiles. So 45 minutes before your timed ticket, you can get into the courtyard. But when it is your time on your ticket, get to those turnstiles as fast as you can.
And it is literally the second that it turns time for your ticket, not 1 second earlier. And when 5 minutes is over, you have lost your turn to go in.
So once we got in, that's when the stairs start. There's about 300 stairs that you're going to be climbing if you go to visit Neuschwanstein. So you do have to be physically able to do that. The first set of stairs was a big chunk. It was well over 100 stairs in the first section. You're going up spiral staircases too. So if you get a little dizzy, keep that in mind. But it is well worth it. This castle was built by King Ludwig for himself, and he never got to actually finish it. He only finished, 14 rooms?
14 rooms. It wasn't finished, but it was also meant to just be for him. It was a private castle. Because most of it wasn't finished, we only saw a few things on the first floor and the third floor, but what we saw was worth it.
Yes, absolutely. Ornate, gorgeous craftsmanship, lots of art. A lot of the art was related to the operas of Wagner, who was a personal friend of King Ludwig. And so, you got to see that. There was a music hall, there was a throne room. We got to see his bedroom. A lot of great things to see. Again, we weren't able to film while we were inside that castle, but we did our trick of going to get some postcards to show you what it looked like.
It was so worth it. And of course, at the end of the tour, they send you right through a gift shop, because yes, most places do. And of course, we had to get a couple things. Our Christmas tree ornament for this trip,
something simple. We wanted something that would travel well. So it is a wood cutout of the castle itself, and it says Neuschwanstein on the bottom. Something light, easy to pack, and something to add to our Christmas tree.
Now, our magnet for that one is a little more ornate with these amazing little things down at the bottom. There's a swan, there's the banner for Bavaria, and a crown. I just absolutely love this one.
Yeah, it's something special. We have a whole wall of magnets. We'll have to show them to you sometime. So after we finished at the castle, we did have to walk back down the hill because the horse-drawn carriages were not running that day. And let me tell you, that was a hike. Even though it was downhill all the way, it's a long distance and you're going at an incline the entire way. Our knees were screaming.
They warned us repeatedly about the stairs in the castle, and I did those without any problem, but boy, was I happy to get back to the bus and be done with that hill on the way down.
Once we got back on the bus, they handed everybody a beer and we got on our way, and we took a 2-hour nap on our way back to Munich because we were tired. But once we got back to Munich, we went out to dinner that evening and we went to Augustina Klosterwirt, another beer restaurant where we had our third schnitzel of the trip. It was the best one so far.
Pepper had a big sausage plate. Carol and I had schnitzels. It was a lot of fun. We had wine that night.
Yes.
We did not have Radlers.
And I thought it was so great because it was right across a little plaza from the big church in Munich, the famous church with the 2 towers with the onion domes on top. And we hadn't gotten a chance to see that yet, so we got to see it that night.
So that concludes everything we did in Munich and in Bavaria on our own, but we did still have to get to our ship in Vilshofen, Germany. So we chose to take the Deutsche Bahn ourselves and get there. We walked to the train station. It wasn't too bad of a walk, although we did get lost.
Yeah, we stayed at the Marriott in the city center in Munich, and so it was a very short walk to the train station. It would have been shorter if we hadn't gotten lost. I maybe would take an Uber or a taxi next time just because we had all of our bags with us.
It was probably a sight, the 3 of us pushing 8 bags through the city for about a mile, but it was fun. And we got to the train station and it was very crowded and busy, but it really wasn't too hard to navigate. We got right on our train. We had first class tickets, which definitely was the way to go because it was a much less crowded car on the train. And we could sit right by our luggage, and having 8 bags, we were really a little concerned about whether they were going to be safe or not.
I really enjoyed that train ride. I thought it was super easy, clean, and I would do it again for sure. Once we got to Vilshofen, we grabbed an Uber, and that's when we went and saw our AMAwaterways ship, the Amalea. Embarkation could not have been easier. The minute we pulled up, we had staff running out to greet us. They were yelling at us, "Put your bags down, don't touch them." So we just left our bags. They brought them in for us. The check-in process, if you've ever done an ocean cruise, you know that the check-in process can be pretty lengthy. This one took 5 minutes. They wanted to check our passports. They took our pictures so that they could do the security going in and on and off the ship, handed us our room keys, and boom, we were in our staterooms. And these staterooms were so comfortable. We were on the bottom level, so we had the swan view rooms. We both did. Laura had her own room, and Pepper and I had a room, but they were comfortable, clean, everything that you needed. I really appreciated the bathroom space, tons of storage, and you don't spend a ton of time in your room on a river cruise.
You know, we've always had a balcony on our ocean cruises, and I was a little worried about whether I'd really miss that or not. But because the ship is so small compared to the ocean liners, and it's got so many places that you can go and hang out outside of your room, I didn't miss that balcony at all.
Once we unpacked and settled in our rooms, which is a wonderful aspect of doing any type of cruise, is that you get to unpack because you are going to be staying in that room that entire week. So we unpacked, we got ourselves settled, we went up and got a little bit of lunch, we walked around the ship, got used to where everything was, and then the next thing you know, it was time to go to sip and sail. Now, sip and sail on the AMAwaterways is something that happens every single night.
So Sip and Sail Hour is actually really cool. I'd never experienced it before this AMAwaterways cruise. And it's a time where you get to sit around, have a drink with your friends, meet people on the cruise. And they're going to come into the lounge and talk to everybody about the excursions the next day. Maybe do a little bit of information about the places that you're going in the future, and it's just a really cool experience.
Yeah, we also got to meet the crew that night, including the captain, and he was so funny. He was such a great guy. After Sip and Sail, they asked us to join them outdoors for something that they do on every Danube River Cruise, which is their very own Oktoberfest. That's right. There was a little tent set up for us outside, so we got a chance to experience Oktoberfest in March. You got beer right when you walked into the room. There were pretzels and an Oompa band, and the beer queen was there, and Pepper even got pulled up for the beer holding competition, which of course he won. We're very proud of him.
After the Oktoberfest, it was time for dinner. That was my first dinner on an AMAwaterways cruise, and it did not disappoint.
Yeah, the food on AMAwaterways is second to none. Every bite is worth it. It is so delicious. I've never had a bad dish on AMA ever, and this is my second cruise that I've taken with them. So after that evening, we stayed overnight in Vilshofen, and we woke up the next morning and we had time to ourselves that morning. So we got up, and even though it was raining, we went out and explored the town a little bit.
The town was kind of closed for the day. It was a Sunday, and it's a traditional Catholic Bavarian town. All of the shops were closed, but it was great to walk around the empty streets and take a look. And we even found the statue of the inventor of the Pilsner for Pepper.
Yeah, he was very impressed with that. We didn't get these in on our trip, but we're kind of great about if we couldn't get an ornament or a magnet on the trip itself, we'll order it when we get home. So I've got this Christmas tree ornament that's got the map of the Danube, and it says Vilshofen on it. So that's going to go on our Christmas tree.
Yeah, I had that made on Etsy. They could make any destination, and it's just too cute. And I found this little magnet on Amazon that says Vilshofen right here.
Once we were done with Vilshofen, we had some scenic cruising that day on our way to Passau, and that's when we went through our first lock. Now, the locks on the Danube get you from one level of the river to the other, whether you're going up or you're going down. And I thought they were just so fascinating. So this one, we were going down. So we were going down a level. We sailed into the lock, the water lowers, and then the doors open, and we sail out at the new level.
And one of the coolest things I thought was that 2 ships can go through that lock at the same time. So it felt like you could reach out and touch the other ship. In fact, they made a point of telling us not to try because we could really hurt ourselves, but they really were that close.
So once we got to Passau, that is known as the City of 3 Rivers because 3 rivers meet in that one location. So the 3 rivers are the Inn, the Ilz, and the Danube itself.
And we took a walking tour of Passau. The city has little brightly colored footsteps all over the streets.
The cobblestones?
All over the cobblestones, yes.
Yeah.
And it directs you right into the artist district. I really thought that was cool.
And we got to see the big cathedral, which has the largest pipe organ in all of Europe in it. That was something to behold.
It was like 17,000 and some pipes in the organ. I'll look it up and we'll put the number right here.
One thing I will have to say is that AMAwaterways provides these excursions as part of the cruise fare, and they select local guides. So the guide that took us on this walking tour was originally born and raised in Passau. He knew everything there was to know about that area. So knowledgeable, so friendly, and again, it's all included in your cruise fare. You go on an ocean cruise and you have to pay extra for all those excursions. So that's what I really like about AMAwaterways and the river cruises.
After our tour, of course, we had to go do a little souvenir shopping, and we got this little magnet right here. Now, we didn't go to this little castle, but there was this giant fortress up on the hill on the Danube side, and it was made for the bishop princes, and so we thought it really showed off what we saw in Passau.
Yeah, we got to see it from across the river. And then I got this, which was the Christmas tree ornament. Again, a wooden one because then it wouldn't get broken in my luggage, with a picture of the river, which was super important to me, and the river ship in front of it, and all of the church spires in the background. So you got to see the skyline of Passau right there.
That, I think, is one of the things that we look for when we're looking for Christmas tree ornaments. I'm not going to bring home a big glass ball because it's going to take up a ton of space in my suitcase, and it's probably not going to make it there safe and sound.
Dinner that night was back on the ship. We had a wonderful time, and they brought in a singer from the West End of London. She was so funny and so talented. We had a great time. You really make friends on AMAwaterways river cruises. You get to know the people that you're cruising with, and we made some really great friends and just really enjoyed ourselves.
It was very cool that every night there was something in the lounge for you to do, whether it was someone that they brought in to do something like that, or even just dancing in the evening.
Yeah. So the next day, we were so excited for this excursion. We had our choice. We could either go to Salzburg and see some of the sites where they filmed the movie The Sound of Music, like the cathedral where Maria and Captain von Trapp were married, or we could go to a 5th country, and that was the Czech Republic, to the little town of Český Krumlov.
Český Krumlov blew our minds.
Yeah, it was all of our favorite stop of the entire trip. It is a tiny medieval town. It's a walled city. It's got a river running through it, a moat around a castle, and live bears. That's right, live bears.
Those live bears live in that moat, and they have been living in that moat, not those particular bears, but bears have been living in that moat since the 1600s.
Yeah. Well, the town was so beautiful, cobblestone streets, everything was built close together. You really got a sense of what it would have been like back in medieval times. It was just beautiful, quaint. It did rain on us hard all day long, and we had taken our umbrellas, but we left them on the tour bus, so we got a little drenched. Thank goodness we had our rain jackets with us. Oh man, but it was just a magical day walking around this little medieval town.
It was so cool. We got to see the exterior of a Baroque theater, and I believe if you go during certain times of the year, you can actually go in and tour the Baroque theater. There are only 3 or 4 Baroque theaters still in existence today in the world, and we got to see one. We also went and purchased some jewelry.
Yes, we love the sparkly things. There is, what was it called? Moldavite?
Moldavite. So there was a meteor that hit Bavaria.
Yeah.
15 million years ago, and the debris field rained down into the Czech Republic, and it's this green meteor glass.
We did get a chance to eat lunch on our own in Český Krumlov, where I had our 4th schnitzel of the trip. I didn't do it on purpose, but I didn't quite know what I was ordering. It was really good. It was thicker than the schnitzel that we got in Germany, so that was something different. Laura, you got like a beef dish?
I had an authentic Czech beef dish. It was like beef tenderloin in a sauce with cranberries and whipped cream. It was unique and delicious.
We got to check out the little town square of Český Krumlov. We went to the church, and they even have a candy store that we had to stop off, and I got the largest gummy bears I've ever seen in my life.
Those were gigantic and delicious, but I really liked that monument in the town square to the Black Plague. I didn't realize that they'd have those in lots of places in Europe, and we see one again in Vienna.
Yeah. So shopping in Český Krumlov, we couldn't help ourselves. I got another great little wooden cut Christmas tree ornament. It seems to be a theme, but it's got the little town center on it. And the magnet that you got, Laura.
Our magnet, I think, is just too cute. It looks like one of the little parts of the town. And we liked this so much that we each got a little thing to put on shelves, her in her office and me in my room.
It looks like some of the little buildings in the town, and it's got the 5-petaled rose, which is an emblem of the town and the noblemen that lived there.
Český Krumlov was a place that I would go back anytime. If you have a chance to go, you absolutely should. The day we went to Český Krumlov, there was an optional tour in the city of Linz, which was where the ship was actually parked. But we were so wet and tired that we opted to stay on the ship, and they always have an afternoon tea in that lounge. And we sat there, read our books, got warm, and had a great time before we went to the chef's table that night.
So this is something special that is on every AMAwaterways ship. It's included in your cruise fare. It doesn't cost any extra, but one night of your sailing, you can go to the chef's table. This is a special meal in a different part, a different dining room on the ship, where they pair just elegant handmade food. The plating is gorgeous. They pair it with wine, and it's just course after course of deliciousness. And we had the best time. We love food, we love wine, and we really love that high-end food that you can get with AMAwaterways.
It was a great experience. I'm really looking forward to doing that again.
I'm going to be dreaming about that chocolate dessert that they melted right in front of you forever. It was so delicious.
That night they had a singer in the lounge, and he even pulled up some of the guests to be part of his experience, and Carol played the tambourine for one of the songs.
Dream come true. It was so much fun.
The next morning was something I was looking so forward to. We cruised down the Wachau Valley, and the Wachau Valley is known for its apricots and its white wine, which we'll get back to that in just a minute. But it was so cool to see all the little towns and the castles. Our guide said that this is the Danube's version of the Rhine River Gorge, which was something that I've always wanted to see as well.
One thing that we did learn is that there's no bridges over this section of the river. So to get from one side to the other, you have to take a ferry. But because there's no bridges, there's nothing stopping and spoiling the beauty of the countryside. You get to see the vineyards, you get to see the quaint little towns and castles. Oh my goodness, we saw so many castles. And we even saw the gorgeous Melk Abbey as we came out of the Melk Lock. You could also take an excursion that afternoon to go tour the Melk Abbey, but we chose to go do some apricot tasting in Dürnstein instead. So Dürnstein is a little medieval town, and they are famous for their apricots and their apricot products. So we got to tour through the little town, and then we went to its Abby for some apricot tasting.
We did. We got to try some amazing apricot things. The first thing that they gave us was some apricot schnapps, which was way stronger than the schnapps you get in the United States. So be prepared. But we did have a second apricot liqueur that we absolutely loved. We loved it so much that we brought some home. It's this right here, and our guide reckoned it to limoncello made with apricots. They also said that this would be good to have on top of ice cream.
We also got to taste some apricot jam. Now, this was delicious. It was so sweet, but there wasn't even any sugar added. It was just flavored from the apricots themselves. We did buy ourselves a little jar, but unfortunately, I made a big mistake, and I put it in my carry-on luggage. When we went through security at the airport in Budapest, they took it from us because they said it was a liquid. But we did get to bring these back with us, and these were my favorite thing that we had at that apricot tasting. These are apricot gummy candies, like a gummy bear or a gummy worm, Haribo. The owner of this company, Viader, loves gummy candies, so he made his own apricot flavored gummy candies in the shape of a heart. And again, I think these were my favorite things that we tasted at that excursion, so we had to get ourselves a jar to bring home with us. After the apricot tasting, we got to wander around the little medieval town on our own and do a little shopping. Souvenir shopping, I got this Christmas tree ornament in a little shop. It's hand painted by the shop owner, so it is one of a kind. She signed it on the back, and it's got the blue tower that Dürnstein is famous for. So I thought that would look really good on my Christmas tree.
I think so. That blue tower is absolutely iconic, and so we had to choose that for our magnet as well. You can see that blue tower from the river, and it really is what sets Dürnstein apart from everything else.
After we were done shopping, we walked back down to meet the bus, and there was a little bar there where we got a drink because we had to take the shuttle back to Weissenkirchen.
Those drinks were maybe one of my favorite drinks on the whole trip. It was an apricot spritzer. It was made with that apricot liqueur I just showed you, and it was delicious.
Yeah, I really liked it as well. The trip back to Weissenkirchen was all of about 10 minutes, and once we got to Weissenkirchen, it was time for some wine tasting.
Oh my goodness. They warned us that the white wine from the Wachau Valley was delicious, and they weren't kidding. I fell in love with the grapes that we had that day. The Gruner Veltliner was absolutely delicious, and we got to try 3 different kinds of Gruner Veltliner grown in 3 different areas on the terraces in the valley, and it was just a really cool experience.
On top of that, there was a Riesling. Now, we are white wine fans, so we were all about this wine tasting, and it was just a wonderful way to spend the afternoon. Once we were done with wine tasting, we went back on the ship for another great meal, and so I think we went to bed a little early that night, though, because, boy, we'd had a lot to drink that day.
The wine will win every time.
For sure.
So the next day would have been Randy's 50th birthday, and we spent that in Vienna. Vienna was nothing short of spectacular. We started the day off with our guided tour like most days, but somehow we ended up with only 6 members in our group, which made it feel very exclusive and like a private tour.
Yeah.
She started us out in the city garden, or Volksgarten, and it was beautiful. Now, there are tons of roses that bloom in that garden, and they weren't quite ready to bloom yet, so those weren't there, but the daffodils were there, and they were beautiful.
Yeah, we kept going through the garden on our way to the president's offices, and that's when something really unexpected happened. Our guide was telling us how the Austrian president every morning comes out and walks his dog, and lo and behold, he was right there. And she went up to him first thing and said, "Would you meet our group?" And he said, "Absolutely." He came over, he shook all of our hands, he talked to us. We got to ask the hard-hitting questions, which was, What's your dog's name? What's your dog's name? It's Louie. That's really what we wanted to know. And then he took a picture with us, and he was just delightful and so gracious. And that's something I think we're never, ever going to forget.
The tour took us throughout the city center, and we got to see not only where the Spanish riding school was, but we got a little peek at the Spanish riding school Lipizzano horses.
Yeah, it was something special as well. Our guide said that that's very rare that you get to see the horses, but they were bringing them in to their stalls after their exercises that morning, so the timing just worked out perfectly.
It felt like things just fell into place that day, like Randy was kind of there with us.
Yeah, absolutely. After we left the riding school area, we continued our tour through the city center, ending up at St. Stephen's Cathedral. This cathedral is something to see. The roof outside, the Gothic architecture, it's something you can't even describe.
It was awe-inspiring and magical. Yeah. Something to behold.
Yeah, we went inside, we got to tour it, we got to see the pipe organ, we got to see the pulpit, the big tall ceilings. It was just a really great experience. It was crowded. It was definitely crowded because I think that's what everybody goes to see, but we don't regret it. I'm glad that we went inside. After the cathedral, we went back to the Hofburg Palace.
Well, before that, we went and got those little sandwiches.
Oh, that's right. Can't forget those sandwiches.
There were these little open-faced sandwiches, very authentic, very local, that our guide told us about. They were like egg salad or mushrooms and eggs, or the pate one was divine.
Yeah.
But they are these little sandwiches that you go in and you just point at the counter at which ones you want. They load them up on a plate. They're a few dollars each. You pay for them, and they're just a little nibble.
Yeah. After that, we went back to Hofburg Palace because we had more crown jewels on the mind. That's right. We went to the Treasury Museum, and I'm so glad we did because we got to see the Austrian crown jewels. It was really neat.
Those Austrian crown jewels were beautiful. I still think the Bavarian crown jewels were a little better than the Austrian crown jewels, but we got to see not just the crown jewels, but a lot of the robes
and
regalia that were there, and it was really cool. Pepper was very enthralled with the narwhal tusk that they thought was a unicorn horn, but my favorite part was the giant hyacinth garnet.
Yeah, I loved the big aquamarine that looked as big as a chicken egg. I liked looking at the crowns. I agree with Laura. My favorite crown jewels that we have seen in the last few months were definitely the Bavarian ones. We've been to see them in London. We've been to see the French crown jewels in Paris. We've seen the Bavarian ones in Munich, and we saw the Austrian ones in Vienna. And nothing to me beats the ones in Munich. Those were still there were so many of them and just so ornate. Pepper liked the ones in Austria the best as well.
He did. But I think that all of the robes and to see those tapestries and those robes that they hand stitched, and the coolest thing was if the thread looked like it was spun gold, it was.
Yeah.
Real spun gold thread. So that was really cool to see. And after going into the Treasury Museum, we took a horse-drawn carriage ride of the city center. This one was our special thing that we did for Randy's birthday. I'd never done a horse-drawn carriage ride before.
It was delightful. It was a great way to go around and see the architecture. The horses were just having a great time. You could hear the clickety-clack of their hooves on the cobblestones while we were riding around. It was a beautiful day in Vienna. The weather was absolutely beautiful. We finished that up really quickly, and then we went back down to the city center on search for a soccer tort.
That was a saga, searching for the soccer tort. And we did finally get one.
Yes.
We did finally get one. We ate it on the ship, and maybe a little overrated, quite frankly, but we can say we've had one. If you go to Vienna and you really want to have one, they say Demel is the best place to have it, but
we kept
maybe
trying.
Skip it.
We kept trying, and it was always too busy. We tried like multiple times to go to Demel, and we could not get one. So shopping in Vienna, we did do a little souvenir shopping. I could not find a Christmas tree ornament that I liked, and so this is a secret that I do. I found these little keychains instead. It's a little Austrian.
How cute are these?
Boy in his lederhosen and a girl in her trindle, and so these are keychains but I'm going to turn them into Christmas tree ornaments. So they both say Austria on them.
Right. We'll take the little chains off, add a string, and these will look absolutely adorable on our Christmas tree.
So that's a little secret that I do.
For our magnet, we got one that just said Vienna and shows a little horse-drawn carriage because that's what we did in Vienna. After we found our Tort, we went back to the ship and enjoyed it in the lounge and had dessert first before going on to a nice dinner where we had our 5th schnitzel of the trip.
Yeah.
Again, schnitzel will be a theme throughout. And then we had a nice quiet evening on the top of the ship, just being reflective. It was Randy's birthday and it just felt fitting.
Yeah. The next day was a slow morning. We did some cruising in the morning. We didn't really even pick up the camera, just had some relaxation time. That afternoon, we landed in the next country, and that was Slovakia, and we were in the town of Bratislava. So we learned so much about the life behind the Iron Curtain from our guide. Laura and I went on a walking tour of the Coronation City, and Pepper went on a beer tasting tour. So we kind of split up. We both had our choice of what to do.
So it was supposed to be a Coronation City tour. Apparently there were 10 monarchs that were crowned in Bratislava. We wouldn't know. She didn't exactly skew towards that, but she did teach us a lot about life behind the Iron Curtain. And Bratislava is on the corner of Slovakia, Hungary, and Austria. So on the other side, the Austrians put a giant TV tower that they could broadcast down into Bratislava. So they got to see some Western TV when she was a kid, and they thought that was really cool.
Yeah, she kept telling us about watching Dallas when she was a kid and about who shot JR. One of the really neat things about Bratislava is all of the public art. So in one of the squares, there is a statue of a soldier from Napoleon's regiment. And the story behind this is that he was camping in Bratislava with the regiment and went out the night before they shipped off and got a little too drunk. The morning he woke up and his entire regiment was gone. So he is leaning against a park bench waiting for them to return. And that was really cute.
There were so many cool statues, but my all-time favorite was the one called Working Man. There was this little man sticking out of what was supposed to be a manhole cover on the corner of the street, and I thought it was too cool that I even had to bring one home for my shelf in my room. So it said that if you rub his head, you'll have good luck. And ladies, if you touch his nose, you have an opportunity to change out your husband.
A lot of public art that you don't want to miss in Bratislava. We did a little shopping around. Like Laura said earlier, we typically try not to get large Christmas tree ornaments that are made out of glass, but I just couldn't resist. This one in Bratislava just captured my heart. It is ceramic, so I took a chance. It is large, so it took up a lot of room in my luggage, but I just loved it. So it's got Bratislava at the top, and it looks like it's hand painted. So I picked this up at a little souvenir shop.
And I chose a magnet that looks like one of the little houses in the town. Yeah. This is very quintessential of what Bratislava looks like. Yeah. Now, we did that Coronation City tour, but Pepper did something completely different. He did a tasting tour of Bratislava, and he had a great time. It was pretty beer-centric, so that's why Carol and I chose to do the other tour. But he said it was fantastic.
Yeah, he's never met a beer that he didn't like. He even stopped at a grocery store, which is something fun to do if you're traveling around. He stopped at a grocery store and found the original Budweiser Budvar beer and brought it back to the ship with him. That night, we went back on board AMAwaterways and had a special treat, which was the captain's dinner. And this was something very special. We got to get dressed up. We started with a cocktail reception in the lounge and went down and had a delicious dinner. Right there, the captain joined the head table. It was just really fun.
It was a little more special than the rest of the dinners, although every meal on that ship was divine.
Yeah, absolutely. The food is so good on AMAwaterways. It's one of the reasons why we pick them.
So our last day on board, we ended in Budapest. Now, there are a ton of bridges as you're heading into the city that were picturesque and must see. But to see that Parliament building when we pulled up in Pest was amazing. It was just amazing. Now, Buda and Pest are actually two different cities on either side of the river. They are one municipality now, but they started out as two cities. Buda is the much older city, and it's up on the hillside, and that's where we toured in the morning.
Yeah.
We started in the castle district. We walked up a million stairs to get to the castle, and then the whole district there is all medieval feeling still and really quaint, and we ended up at Fisherman's Bastion.
Okay, so what Fisherman's Bastion is it's where the fishermen would be assigned to protect the city. That's where they would report if there was going to be a siege on the city. And so if a siege was coming in, all of the fishermen were located right below it, and they would run up the hill into that bastion to help protect the city. And right outside of that was another cathedral with a gorgeous roof on it. The architecture was stunning. I think this was the prettiest cathedral that we saw the entire time we were on this trip.
Now, while we were on the Buda side, our guide gave us a really good tip. Budapest and Hungary are known for their paprika, but he told us not to buy it in one of the normal souvenir shops, but just to stop in a little grocery store. And that's what we did. I brought home some paprika for gifts and for ourselves, and I just got them at a local grocery store. It was a lot cheaper than getting it at the souvenir shops, and it was the exact same stuff that you could buy there. This is the one I brought home for us. I love this little spoon.
That's cute.
How cute is that? And then I brought smaller bags home as gifts for people. There are multiple types of paprika in the world. This is the hot paprika, and this is the sweet paprika. There is also a smoked paprika, but that was a lot harder to find.
And one of the tips that we found is that if it has a guy on the front of the bag, that is the spicier, the hot paprika. And if it's a lady, that is the sweet paprika. So that makes a lot of sense. We did our souvenir shopping in the Buda side. There were so many cute little shops. This is the Christmas tree ornament that we got. It's a little angel, a little ceramic angel, and it said Budapest on it. And we found a matching magnet, so we knew we had to get that. And then, of course, we were traveling with Pepper, so we got ourselves a Pepper Budapest magnet, and it's got the Parliament building on it as well. We couldn't resist.
I didn't buy a lot of stuff for myself on the trip. We usually never do. The trip is our big present to ourselves, but I found this scarf in the Buda side and I had to get it. It's got Budapest all over it. I don't know if you can see this very well, but it's got the Parliament building and the castle on it, and it says Budapest, and of course it's in my favorite color, so yeah. I had to get this as an added little souvenir.
After we toured the Buda side, we went back to the ship for lunch, and then we got on a tour bus and we toured the Pest side. That's when the weather stopped holding out on us again, and we got rained on, but we had umbrellas with us. We got to see the exterior of the Parliament building. We got to go to the Heroes Square, which was really neat. We got to see the shoe monument, which was actually a really powerful moment. During World War II, they went to the Jewish quarter of the city and they rounded up the citizens and marched them down to the river. They made them take off their shoes and then they executed them and pushed them into the river. And this is a bronze statue, a bronze art installation of all of the shoes that were left over. And even though it's a hard part of our history, it's something that we really wanted to see and highlight.
We did really want to see this. The Nazis did this towards the end of the war when they knew that the Allies were coming and they couldn't get their prisoners to one of the concentration camps to kill them. So they did it at the side of the river, and so many people needlessly lost their lives, and it was just a very poignant memorial, and I'm glad we got to see it.
Yeah, it was very moving.
The Pest side is where the government and the parliament are in Budapest, and so that's really what we got to see in the afternoon, and it was really cool too. I will say that next to the parliament building was the place to see the Hungarian crown jewels, and we didn't have time, so we have a mission to get back there someday.
Yeah, I will say that was the 5th country that we went to on this one trip. We got to go to Germany, Austria, the Czech Republic, Slovakia, and Hungary. 5 countries in 1 week, all on the same ship. We never had to leave our one comfortable stateroom on the beautiful Amalea. That is one of the reasons that we do the river cruising. It really takes you through it.
It's really nice. It does take you through each of the cities, and it's like you have a floating hotel room with you with 5-star dining and accommodations right there in the city centers. They say that ocean cruising takes you to the destinations, but river cruising takes you through the destinations. And I definitely felt that.
And after we were done doing all of our tours in Budapest that day, we went back to the ship. We did have to start packing because we had to leave the next day, but they ended the cruise with a bang. We went up to the Sip and Sail Hour, and they had some special guests on board. There were 4 well, first of all, there were some musicians from Budapest, and there were 4 dancers. So they were doing some traditional dances for us, and it was just a lot of amazing, rowdy, good time. They even did the bottle dance, where they take a wine bottle and they're dancing with it, and they came and sat it on top of Laura's head. So that was a really special moment. It was a great way to put a capstone on this spectacular trip with AMAwaterways.
So yes, unfortunately that night we had to pack. We had to go home the next morning. We had planned on just taking a taxi to the airport, but that's again where AMAwaterways has everything on point. They wouldn't just let us take care of the taxi. They wanted to know exactly what time we wanted to leave, and they arranged for it to be there and waiting for us the next morning, and it went off without a hitch.
Yeah, the customer service could not be beat. Our cruise manager, Maddie, was incredible. Our hotel manager, Milos, was great. Every single staff member went above and beyond to make our week just a wonderful experience. And that is why we will always go back to AMAwaterways for our European river cruises, because we just had the most wonderful time.
And we definitely have several different rivers in mind for the future, so stay tuned. We're probably going to do some more.
So before we wrap up today, we've been showing you our souvenirs all along, and we saved the best for last. We were in the Bavarian region of Europe, and it wouldn't be a true Bavarian trip unless you bring home a beer stein. We actually bought this on the ship. We bought this on the Amalea. We loved it because it says Deutschland, and if you can see at the very front, it's got Neuschwanstein in the front of it. This is a really quality piece, so we were excited that it made it back to California in one piece, and we've got it sitting on a shelf in our home in a place of honor to always remember this trip. We had just a wonderful time on this trip. We could not recommend AMAwaterways more highly. If you are thinking about a river cruise, do it. You don't get scared by the sticker price of it because it's all inclusive. Everything is included. We really didn't spend much on the ship, just on our little souvenirs, because it was all paid for in advance.
Right. So their tours are all going to be included. Your meals are all going to be included. But your wine, beer, and cocktails at lunch, dinner, and sip and sail hour will all included in the price as well. So maybe a drink or two after dinner might have been a charge for us, but it was very nominal and it was spectacular.
Yeah, if I add up what I spend on an ocean cruise on excursions and specialty dining and the drink package and all of the extras, it adds up to be about the same. And the experience can't be compared. The experience of a river cruise in Europe just cannot be compared to an ocean cruise.
So have you ever thought about going on a river cruise? What are your thoughts? I really want to hear them. Please put them in the comment section below. Let's have a conversation. Have you ever been ocean cruising? Have you ever been river cruising? Which one do you prefer?
Now, it's not that we're never going to go ocean cruising again. In fact, let's give you a little sneak preview. We are getting ready in about a week and a half to go on our next trip. It is a girls' trip. Just the 2 of us. We are going to be spending 4 days in New York City. It's the first time for both of us. And then we are going to get on the NCL getaway for a 7-day cruise to Bermuda. So we're going to be bringing that to you right here on Core 4 Adventures. So stay tuned for that.
Don't forget to subscribe and turn on that notification bell so you don't miss any of that. We are so excited, getting ready to start packing right now.
And thank you so much for joining us today. And we will catch you next time right here on Core 4 Adventures.
Bye!